Is the Pimax Crystal Super the holy grail of high-end PC VR headsets, or just a classic case of overpromise and underdeliver? Well, I tried it at CES a couple of weeks ago and have compressed my thoughts and feelings into this video for you, so let's see what the Crystal Super is all about. Let's briefly talk about specs first, because this beast looks completely bonkers on paper. Full 4K resolution per eye at exactly 3840 by 3840 for each lens, QLED and mini LED panels with local dimming, putting out up to 280 nits of peak brightness and a 72 to 120 Hz refresh rate. It has eye tracking and automatic IPD adjustment as well as integrated audio. And the stated field of view sits at 120 degrees, but it can get as high as a whopping 135 degrees. And let me explain. The reason for it having two options, or actually three in total, but we'll talk about that later, is because this is the world's first VR headset with an interchangeable optical engine. And I can confirm they actually exist because I got to see and hold these for myself. We'll come back to that later, but it basically means you can get either one of two QLED optical engines or an OLED one that you can switch on the fly based on what you're doing, whether it's gaming, watching a movie, or working, for example. They simply snap in and out of the headset housing in a way that felt simple to operate and sturdy for the long run. Finally, on specs, it features inside-out tracking, but same as all recent Pimax headsets, it is compatible with a Lighthouse faceplate that will make it base station tracked as well if you prefer that. Okay, so on paper, awesome, but is it actually that good in practice? Well, the short answer is yeah, it is. I tried the Super in DCS World as well as a couple of other use cases, and it is the absolute sharpest, best looking image I've ever seen in a VR headset. This was my raw first reaction when trying it for the first time.
This is crazy sharp. Like the text and everything, they look insane.
I'll circle back to the visuals in a sec, but one other thing that you may have noticed is that the Crystal Super is a lot smaller in size. The weight is about the same as a Crystal Lite, but they've moved away from the classic hammerhead shark style of massively wide headsets to a more normal width design. While the weight has pretty much remained the same or only a very tiny bit less, the overall comfort was dramatically better than the Crystal or Crystal Lite. And that's both while relatively stationary and especially noticeable when moving my head around due to the center of gravity being closer to your face. The Super now comes with a top strap by default as well as a bunch of other small adjustments and changes to the overall ergonomics. This led to highly better comfort overall, and to prove it, I even had Mrs. Man Cave try it out and she can barely stand any headset. She was so immersed and blown away by flying the plane and the visuals when looking around that she basically forgot she's even wearing a headset, which never ever happens. And this leads us back to visuals because there's quite a bit more to talk about here. So I mentioned earlier that there are three optical engine options that you can choose from. The one we were testing here was the highest clarity QLED one at 57 ppd with a 120 degree field of view. This provided some absolutely mind-blowing visuals with incredible sharpness. That being said, Pimax explained that they've tweaked the angle of the aspheric lenses a bit on this pre-production unit and still have some work to do in fixing the distortion profiles in software. There was indeed a tiny bit of distortion, but even in this unfinished state, it still looked crazy good. And the field of view, even though it was only 120 degrees, looked massive and very immersive with near edge-to-edge clarity, and that was while running DCS with fixed foveated rendering, which again is something I wasn't expecting. The Pimax guys explained that they didn't have an ideal PC there at CES, which is why they needed to bump down the settings, so I'm super looking forward to trying it at home and pushing it to its limits. Another thing that really impressed me was the brightness, which is higher than the Crystal or Crystal Lite at 280 nits. While that might not seem like a lot compared to smartphones or TVs, when the screens are so close to your eyes and the light is beaming at you in a completely dark environment like a VR headset, believe me, it's more than enough. For reference, a Quest 3 has a max brightness of 100 nits, so 280 is nearly 3 times that, and it's extremely noticeable. The black levels have also been drastically improved here with what Pimax calls local dimming 2.0, which increases the local dimming zones to 1000 per eye. That made things that were close by to each other in the cockpit, such as buttons, dial, etc., have a very good contrast between the light and dark areas, as well as everything outside the plane. I honestly can't wait to fly over Las Vegas at night in this headset when I get it at home for review, which should be fairly soon, so subscribe if you're into that. While the screens are definitely impressive, the guys at Pimax explained that it's the aspheric lenses that really differentiate them from other companies that might be using the same displays but pairing them with pancake lenses, for example. And having tested the Crystal, Crystal Lite, and now the Super, I can absolutely confirm that these lenses are like nothing you've ever seen on a VR headset. I think the main benefit of these, besides the clarity, is the fact that there is absolutely no glare or ghosting noticeable at all, and I generally can't stand it, so I see it straight away. And this leads us to talking about the optical engines a bit, because the aspheric lenses come in two flavors. The one I tested at 57 ppd and 120 degrees FOV, and the second option, which is 50 ppd and 135 degrees FOV, which would be the one I'd go for if I had to pick. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to test that one, but giving up 7 ppd for an extra 15 degrees of FOV seems like a no-brainer. 50 pixels per degree is still a crazy amount that will look incredible nevertheless. Now, the third option that I think will be perfect, especially for those who love watching movies in VR or hanging out in VR chat or other social apps, is the micro OLED optical engine. This has a slightly lower overall resolution at 3840 by 3552 per eye, and what I'd consider about a standard FOV of 102 degrees, which is somewhere between a Quest 2 and a Quest 3, but closer to the 3 as a frame of reference. Of course, all of this begs the question, what kind of monster PC will you need to run this? Well, let's put it like this, the Crystal Super has got me really itching to get an RTX 5090 to take full advantage of it. That being said, Pimax have come a long way with their upscaling technology, and also having eye tracking will dramatically help with performance. And here's the shocker, the demo I had was running at only 75% resolution on an AMD GPU, so 4090 or 5090 with eye tracking will very likely allow us to bump that up to 100% resolution, and I can't even imagine what that will look like if this blew me away already. By the way, do you think I should get a 5090? Let me know in the comments if you'd find a video testing that in different VR games useful. A few other things to note about the Crystal Super is that it comes with integrated speakers and 2 microphones, but as you can imagine, the CES show floor was in no way ideal for testing either of them, so I'll save any thoughts about that for the full review coming soon. Overall, the Crystal Super is an impressive piece of VR engineering, and while without a doubt a very expensive headset, it's what us PC VR enthusiasts have been waiting for years. A high-resolution, high-refresh rate, high FOV headset dedicated to PC VR. A headset with all the bells and whistles, especially eye tracking. A headset that is comfortable and can be worn for long periods of time. And so far, even in this pre-production state, the Super delivered on all that and then some. If I've missed anything, ask me in the comments below and I'll answer as best I can based on my experience with the Crystal Super. And I'll leave a pre-order link for it in the description as well if your pockets are deep enough and your love for ultra high-end PC VR strong enough. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you soon. Cheers guys!